So I got to get your introduction here that I wrote last night.
Oh, wow.
No.
You wrote it after last night?
Yeah, after last night. No. So Mark Waits has become a very good friend in a short time. Mark now works with me at NCPP. Mr. Waits has been involved in roadway transportation and materials for 46 years. Prior to joining NCPP in 2024, he worked for more than 36 years with the Alabama Department of Transportation, rising from the ranks in different roles and functional areas, including maintenance, operations, and project management at both district and central office levels. In all his roles, he has shown strong records of developing, leading, and implementing transportation infrastructure-related initiatives and programs. He further provided leadership, oversight, and training, as well as built strategic partnerships with private entities and institutions to implement multi-million-dollar work and operational programs. Prior to transitioning to ALDOT, he worked as a foreman superintendent for a private road and bridge contractor for 10 years. Mark, and what we're doing with this is a tale of two states. One is Alabama, which Mark will cover. And then I'm going to talk about New Jersey. The gentleman that did the original presentation wasn't able to travel for NJDOT, so I'm going to talk about New Jersey. So,
right.
Mark, you got Alabama? There's your clicker, buddy.
Thank you, bud.
Good morning. And I mean good morning, too. They tried to hurt me last night. I don't know why. It might be because I'm from Alabama. Do I need an interpreter to understand how I'm talking today from Alabama? Everybody good with this? All right. I might say a few, listen to you. I may say a few y'alls out there, okay? All right. Hey, I am Mark Waits. I retired from the Department of Transportation a couple years ago and got fortunate enough to go on board with Rex and the NCPP, and it's been my pleasure, Rex, working with you. You're still my hero, man. I want to let you know that. Here to talk a little bit about where ALDOT which is Alabama Department of Transportation, had evolved from nothing to something. Really. We had no preservation program going on. We thought we did, but we really don't. Let me get us started here. And I am Mark Waits. I'm a former roadway maintenance or engineer, assistant engineer for the Maintenance Bureau. My responsibility was over all the roadways in the state of Alabama. That includes everything: vegetation, welcome centers, rest areas, you name it, but mainly the roadways. So why preservation? What are we in here talking to you about today? Pavement preservation? When I took the job in 2015, as I said, Alabama really did not have a pavement preservation program. We had a pavement preservation policy, and I'll get to that in just a little bit, but we really had no program. And I took this job, and and you can see the date right here, it's March 20th, 2013, when this article came out. I walked right into our chief engineer's office, and he said, "Mark, the director's got this report right here, and he's not happy with it. We've got to do something." I'm going, "What report?" And I get to read this article right here, and there we go. 1/4 of the state's public roads are in poor or mediocre shape. I'm going, uh-oh, what have I walked into? By the way, 25% of the roads are in poor condition. So every one of every 4 roads that you rode on is in poor condition. That includes counties, municipalities, and states. Now, Alabama's DOT is only responsible for NH highways and state highways, not the counties and cities. So I had to decide, what do I need to do now? Do I just stay on the same road and hope that something doesn't bad happen? Or do I need to make another plan? Could I put a Band-Aid on it? You know, just get it through for my little short time that I knew I was going to be there next 5 or 6 years? Or could I just sit back and chill out and see what happens? Why pavement preservation? You know, the first thing I learned a long time ago is it takes what to make something happen, right? Sorry, Rex. I think no, he's still back there in the back, yeah. So it actually takes money to make stuff happen, doesn't it? Well, as a state agency, and how many people here have ever been in a state agency? I've one. And it takes money, right? And you've got to figure out where the money's coming from and how much you have. And we actually had 2 funding sources for me to be able to do the job that I have been assigned to do. And it had been level funded for several years. Federal, we actually had 2 programs. The what I call the FM, the Federal Aid Maintenance, which looked after all the non-federal routes or federal aid routes, and the interstate maintenance money, IM, which looked after all the interstate maintenance. 2 different pots, but it's really out of one big pot. So Alabama's interstates had about 4,700 lane miles. And in 2014, the lane mile cost to maintain it was $357,000 per lane mile. I sat down for a long time, many nights, crunching these numbers when I first went into position, because you got to actually realize what it's costing you to do, you know, and how much money you have, but how much is it costing you to do. So the interstate maintenance was $357,000 per lane mile. Non-interstate, which we called our FM program, was about 24,000 miles, lane miles. And its lane mile cost was $147,000 per lane mile to maintain. Problem with the FM program, the federal maintenance, not the IM, was it had been level funded statewide for $244 million. That sounds like a lot of money, but it's really not when you start dealing with separating monies out for each county or each division within the state. So I said, okay, I know how much it cost, and I know how much money I have to deal with. Now let me see how much it would cost me if I wanted to go in and resurface the roadways in Alabama, the FM roadways in Alabama, in 1 year, just kind of get an idea. And it was $3.6 billion. That $244 million was not a big number. You thought it was to start with, but it's not. So I said, okay, at the rate of $244 million, how many years would it take me to catch up or to do all the roads? And it turned out to be 15 years. I said, uh-oh. How long does a hot mix application or design life last? Theoretically, 15 years, 12 to 15 years. Realistically, maybe 9 years, depending on what the truck traffic is, right? And what your structure value is. So I went, uh-oh, I don't have enough money to do what I'm going to do. No wonder Alabama's in such bad shape. No wonder Alabama's in the lower third of the nation in roadway condition. So I said, okay, what about my interstates? Well, I got $357,000. That's what it's costing me, but I'm getting a pretty good chunk of money out of it for $90 million a year. And I did the same equations. It cost me about $1.7 billion to resurface all of it in 1 year. But then again, it came out to be 19 years to catch up, just at the rate I was getting the $90 million out of. So I didn't have enough money there either. And by the way, the interstate maintenance program, I had to pay for everything else that included rest areas, overhead sign bridges, signing projects, drainage structures, whatever that came out of that $90 million. I talked to our chief engineer at the time, Mr. Don Arkle. He was very understanding, and he said, well, Mark, that is not enough money when I showed him this. He said, we got to do something. I said, well, I need a lot more money. I don't need just $90 million. He said, the most I can afford you is $180 million a year. And that includes everything else you had to pay for. I said, uh-oh, that's not enough money. Something's got to change. Alabama's got to change. You see, it slowly increased. So I said, Mr. Arkle, who's our chief engineer, I said, we need to have an understanding. If we want to make a change in Alabama, it's got to start at the top. I need the top management to buy in. I've got a plan when I was at the lower levels in the district, how I managed my money at the district was with not enough money to do pavement preservation. And I explained it to him. He understood it, totally bought in. And Mr. George Connors, our deputy director, he bought in. Well, at the time I did all this talking, Alabama actually had a pavement preservation policy, which is good, right? It's real good. You got a policy, let's apply it. The problem was, oh, and by the way, it created a PM1 and a PM2, preventative maintenance 1, preventative maintenance 2. And 1 was basically anything less than a 1-inch overlay, which included a lot of your liquid bituminous applications. PM2s, basically less than 2 inches. But when I looked and I pulled the data up, and I had to, there again, many nights digging up data. In 2014, on the IM program, you can see to the left there, how many projects did we actually have that were PM1s, which were your preventative maintenance, basically? 0. That's statewide. On the FM side, and on the FM side, each region or area was responsible for developing their own projects for paving. They did 3 or 2% of the program. 2015, which when I came in, there was 3 IM programs or projects and 0 on the FM side. So they were not using the pavement preservation policy. I'm wondering why. The pavement preservation policy gave them opportunities to skirt around the federal design criteria, such as clear zones and stuff like that, that they didn't have to address when they did paving projects. But we weren't using them. Well, you can see when I walked in at 2015 and 2016 on the IM program side, we did 6. 50% of the projects we let that year were pavement preservation projects, and 6 projects are 5%. I started beating the drum to the regions to try to get them to do pavement preservation projects. It increased, and I'll talk about that a little bit here later, but you can see the numbers increased. And I hate throwing numbers out to everybody because it gets boring looking, but if you look at 2015, I broke down the PM1s, PM2s, preventative maintenance 2s, and MRs, which is minor rehab. I kind of broke them down. You can see we went on the IM side 3, 3, and 10, and On the FM side, they had zero prevented or pavement preservation projects. We weren't doing anything in pavement preservation. We were a mill and fill state. Everybody understand that term? That's what we did. We went and we milled it out. We put hot mix back down. Hot mix was the way to go. Very strong industry. Very strong. 2016, it got a little bit better, but I noticed that we weren't using our pavement preservation policy. But why? I learned and I found out that a lot of people didn't know about it. So 2016-17, we did a training program, and thank you, NCAT, because they participated in it. We brought in each region to NCAT facility, and we exposed them to pavement preservation and all the opportunities that they had, and explained and showed to them how it actually saves them money. It was their money on the FM side. I was responsible out of the Maintenance Bureau for the IM side. After 2017, all of a sudden we started getting a little bit more pavement preservation projects. 2018, you see I say no projects yet, but I expanded this on through, and you can see on the budgets for the IM side, our budget went from $179 million that we put on paving to $137 million because we were saving money. And you could also see that our PCR, which is our pavement condition rating, which included RI, it went from 82.6 to 92.9. We got better roads. I caught somebody's attention in the regions. All of a sudden, the regions started saying, hey, this is working. And they said, we want part of it. It's saving money. It's improving our roadway conditions. On the FM side, we went from 7 projects in 2019 on PM1s and PM2s, which is pavement preservations. You can see the shift went from the mill and fill, which is the MR, to doing pavement preservation. The guys started seeing that this was actually working, and it was saving them money, and they were getting more miles for their dollar. The training program that we did in 2017, I showed you that it increased the numbers for us to do pavement preservation within the regions, but there was a little bit of a tick or downfall in 2017. If you look right here, we went from 15 to 11 to 9. I said, what's going on? Why are we losing numbers? Well, as any agency goes, you have a personnel turnover. And when you have personnel turnover, that knowledge is lost. I don't care how you go about it, it's lost. So I said, we need to do more training. So before I left, wholesale throughout the state, we did around the world tours, what I called it in the state, and we did another training. And there again, after the training, we went from 7 to 19 projects and 77 PM2 projects. I said, yeah, I'm leaving the department in good hands. And to supplement the efforts, we revised our pavement preservation policy. NCAT had a lot to do with this. We looked back and we said, okay, what do we need to do? What's the best approach as far as the materials and the milling and the applications? And we included all these into our pavement preservation policy. And when we did all this, if you recall, the article that was in 2013 was from AL.com. It said that we were in the lower third of the nation. Same publications, and they came out in 2023, and all of a sudden we had the third best roads in Alabama. I'm proud of that. That's not I said, if it's just one article, maybe somebody's, shaking hands at night with somebody, say, oh yeah, but all of a sudden, it's more than one article. The same year, Consumer Affairs came out and said Alabama is up there, number 4. And what's really cool about this particular article, if you read in there, it says a guy in Huntsville said 99% of the roads I travel have few potholes. And what that tells me is this guy, he's just a public dude. He's just being interviewed. He is saying that he can live with that one pothole. Okay? My approach into pavement preservation and our approach into the interstate maintenance program was we're going to get the main lines first. We're going to get the best roads first and preserve them and neglect the worst roads. Because as that MR classification I told you earlier it's not going to get any worse. It's as bad as it's going to be. Does it cost your maintenance operations money to go out there and fix it? Yes, but it's costing them anyway. Let's go out and preserve these roadways, have a total buy-in from the top, management, and understand that's the concept. Is it popular? No. But did it work? Yes. So we preserved our roadways that are in good shape, as long as they're structurally sound, and extended their lives for 7 to 10 more years. I didn't have to worry with it. That was a lot of miles. So we started saving money on our maintenance program out of that IM money, and I could actually start taking money out of the resurfacing and start using it for sign projects, drainage structure repairs. IM, our welcome centers, it actually really started working out, and it works. So do you have to neglect your roadways? No. You still got to repair the potholes. You still got to repair the rutting. Still got to be concerned about cross slope. But those conditions aren't going to change. They're the same as they were the day that you looked at them. Preserve your roadways that are in good shape, structurally sound, and you're going to find the money to address your worst roadways. Alabama had concrete paving. I'm not beating up concrete paving. That was put in the 60s. That was falling all apart. And I knew it was going to cost a lot of money to jump on those and repair them. And we are currently, I've retired now, we are currently replacing 41 miles of concrete paving in North Alabama because we have the money to do it now. So, with that, I told you to be short and sweet. Anybody have any questions? I'd be glad to answer them. Man, I must have done a great job up here today. Great job. And I didn't even need a interpreter for my southern slang, did I? All right. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. All right, so now we're going to talk, and and I think, obviously, we designed this because we wanted to speak to PennDOT, and they will get this, but the fact that what he did, what they did, with his help is amazing, and more people just need to hear that message. That, just like you said, those bad roads are not going to get any worse. They're not going to get any better. You just got to keep them safe. put your money into your good roads, and then pretty soon, as an agency, you're going to be able turning, you didn't turn money back, but you used it for other things. And that's our whole message here at PAAMA and for what we do. So again, this New Jersey, a little bit shorter than where we came from, Mr. Robert Blight, who's with the New Jersey Department of Transportation. He gave most of this information, or all of this, at the Northeast Pavement Preservation Partnership. I've just pulled a few slides out of it, again, just to see how another state did it. And they were kind of in the same boat there. In 2002, they had 45% poor, 43% fair, and only 12% good on their road network. That's not too good. And so they had decided at that time, we need to start doing something different, just like Mark did. And so 2002, they started in on some, at that time they had a lot of concrete pavements that they were dealing with. So they started working on that 1-inch concrete preservation, and we're not going to get too deep into that. But that was also the first, in 2003 is the first time they used microsurfacing in their program. And they mentioned that it was also the year the National Center for Pavement Preservation was founded. Then they started on those concrete roads, and this is something that we do as PAAMA, is that joint and crack sealing. They figured out that was extremely important to keep those concrete roads in good condition as long as they could. Their microsurfacing, obviously, something that we all know. Their microsurfacing program grew from 2003, and they were doing that with a high-quality aggregate, polymer-modified emulsion, roughly 20 pounds per square yard of aggregate and 0.3 gallons per square yard of emulsion. So that was one of their major processes that they used in their pavement preservation program. We've all learned that today about what it's good for. They were using it to renew the road surface. They liked it because it was a fast open to traffic, capable of being placed in variable cross sections. It can fill ruts, longitudinal joints, rumble strips, and they can do a scratch or intermediate layer before they do a hot mix overlay. So it was really good for them, for their program. So moving forward, then in 2004, I think this was something that was really big that New Jersey did, is they merged their pavement management and their pavement design groups. So before that, you had two different groups, and design was probably building things that were tough to maintain, and pavement management's going, what are you guys doing? Well, we're doing what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to design roads. Well, we can't fix those roads. And so by merging those two groups, they had the same goal. They needed to design pavements that they could preserve and make last longer. And so I think if Robert was here, that's probably what he would say is one of the biggest things that they did, was to merge those. And they had some appraisals. They worked with NCPP, Rutgers on what are we doing right and what are we doing wrong. So I love this cartoon here. It says, I know I was swerving, officer. I swear I wasn't drinking. He's just trying to avoid the potholes. So much of their network in 2005 was in poor condition, and they were using the worst first approach. So major resurfacing, some major rehab, and reconstruction. They were doing reactive maintenance, and they had inadequate and inconsistent funding. And they did very little preservation, and their roads showed that. So there's that same graph that we saw, and they knew it. They were sinking. They had a sinking ship, and there's lots of DOTs that see that when you start running those numbers that Mark did, and you go, oh, now it would be probably $6 billion to do what you had to do back then. I need $6 billion. I'm not going to get $6 billion. What do I do? And that's what New Jersey came through. So they decided to implement a pavement preservation approach so they could achieve maximum efficiency and increase the average condition of their pavement while decreasing the average spend per square yard. That's why they brought in pavement preservation, same as Mark, is let's put a little money into our good roads so we can forget about them, and then we can have more money to come back and rebuild these failing roads as we can. Then what I think is very important is they put a line item in their budget for pavement preservation. I tell this story a lot, but back when I was a contractor working in Texas, if Texas had a hurricane that year, if Texas had a flood, or if any event happened in Texas, well, pavement preservation was the last stuff to go to letting. And they would go, yep, we don't have any money for pavement preservation this year because we spent it all on salt or this or that. Well, with a dedicated line item in that budget, that really helps an agency work this process through. They were also working at designing new mixes, new processes. Their Hepto overlay, which Ken could probably tell us all about. They're working on some SMA mixes. Ultra thin bonded wearing course is becoming big for them. So they're making changes. They call that the ultra thin friction course, same as the Nova chip, and they were being very successful with that product in their pavement preservation program. They liked it because it gives them a renewed road surface. It's a quick open to traffic, improves wet weather skid resistance, 15 to 20%, and reduces wet weather tire spray, so that's very important for the driver. It minimizes their wrap. That's one thing they were also looking at. When we mill and fill, and we mill off 2 inches and we only put back, if we're using 20% wrap, what are we doing with all these piles of wrap? And so that minimizes. There's only micro milling. They're not producing that much wrap. That's saving the department as well. And they like the bond with the spray paver. So you can see here, this is kind of an interesting chart. So this is their investment every year from 2005, which was $0 in pavement preservation, pavement maintenance, preventive maintenance, up to 2024, where they invested $173 million. And so we watched that progression of spend on the pavement preservation. They were doing that with chip seals, rubberized chip seals, using high-quality aggregate, high-quality modified asphalt. That was good for them. They like that. It's a fast road surface. It's easy to do. It's open to traffic, seals out water, no milling required at all. And it doesn't give you an improvement on your ride quality, but it does improve their wet weather skid resistance. Boy, that's a tough one after a couple glasses of wine last night. And gives that 5 to 7 years of life extension. So it gives them 5 to 7 years of not having to worry about that road. So they continued on, and in 2019 they preserved 585 of their 1,157 lane miles. They worked on their TAMP, which is, Mark, Transportation Asset Management Plan. That's what it is, yeah, and got that through and submitted that. In 2024, they preserved 798 of 1,100 lane miles, and they started using their Ultra Hepto mix. So here's another chart that is really interesting. And so they're calling it this kind of the same thing Mark did. They're calling it that preservation boost, which says, I'm now putting some dollars into preservation, which is freeing up other dollars. And so really I'm almost getting more for my money because I'm doing preservation. And you can kind of watch that. Their targeted lane miles a year, that's the dashed line, was 860. And as they do more preservation, they're getting closer and closer to that target, and in some years all the way above it. So again, this is for when we're out there talking to our small agencies and PennDOT about pavement preservation. These are tools that you can use to show them. I like this slide, and it took me a while to get this little thing, but what he's talking about is so again, you've got your deficient pavements here, and so you have to rehab them, and then you take them up and you drop them into this funnel, and they work their way through, and pretty soon they're deteriorated. You just got to keep doing it. But if you come in here and you hit that funnel, and instead of letting it drop out the bottom, you put a pavement preservation on it, and you keep these roads spinning up here in good condition while you're fixing these others. Again, I'm going to steal that one because I do like that. So the good thing is for them, it's federally eligible. So preservation line item has that, so they can use federal dollars on it. It's faster delivery, quick projects, lower overhead, their design is easy, delivery costs are inexpensive. They can have a lot of projects on the shelf, so at the end of the year, the end of the fiscal year, they need to spend some money. They've got preservation projects on the shelf. They can pull them off, call a contractor, and go get some roads fixed. A lot of programming flexibility. Again, these are quick-hitting, easy projects to do. And again, they're environmentally friendly, so they reduce that wrap that they're pulling off the road, and they're reducing traffic tie-ups. You're on the road a lot less time. So one other quick, this is kind of that effect of preservation on their network condition, and so you can see that their good to fair status is climbing throughout the years, and that's exactly what we want to see. And their IRI, percent of good IRI improved from 23% to 63%, and their acceptable increased from 73 to 90%. So just tremendous things that they've done. And so here's another way to look at it. So 2005, 49% poor, to 2024, 47% good, 35% fair, and only 18% poor. And that's in a 20-year stretch. And so another good numbers to see, and you can see here how the poor drops, crossing with the good going up the other way, and they crossed there at 2016, and continually making their road system better. So I want to thank Mr. Blight. I wish he could have been here. He could have done this a whole lot better than me. But NJDOT was a success, just as Alabama was a success, and how we want Pennsylvania to be a success as well. So any questions or comments on that? Yes, Mark?
I'd like to make a comment. Agencies, we did from one, they like to take at least half of the assistance. You said that they put money into their pavement preservation program. That's the last thing that you want to do is mandate to an agency that you got to put 25% of this money into pavement preservation. You don't want to do that. Because guess what they're going to do? They're going to put 25% in, whether it needs it or not. They're going to take the wrong application on the wrong road at the wrong time just to spend that money. You got to make sure the training is there. The training is very important when you start dealing with agencies. And I know that there's not a lot of agency people in Gallatin County one, but when you're dealing with agencies, you've got to understand that. Okay? You've got to understand that they, on that mindset, that they're going to spend that money whether it's the right thing or wrong. Let's make sure they spend it on the right thing. Okay? Make sure they do the right application at the right time and the right way. I just want to stress that. New Jersey did that apparently.
Yep.
Okay? And that's the path that we took. You can see the numbers, the training made a huge difference. First thing they want to do when you go in there and train them is say, hey, this is what we're doing. Or somebody comes into their particular area, they say, hey, this scrub seal is the way to go. Next thing you say, hey, we want to do scrub seals. Anything like this says do the right thing. So make sure when you're dealing with agencies, you get the biggest bang for your buck, because as a contractor or a liquid applicator or whatever the case may be, you want that money to go to the right application. You don't want it to be wrong. Because if it's wrong, it puts a black eye on the industry. We want to make sure everything's wrong.
Thank you, brother.